Welcome back to another episode of Rennch. On this show, we are talking all things bodywork. So as the SEMA deadline gets closer and closer, this car has to get into paint, but before that it has to get into primer. And to do a paint job like this is something I've never really done before. I did almost all the body work on the Gray Ghost, but I never actually physically painted it. I'm hoping that with this project, I can change all that. As always, I don't assume I know what I'm doing. I would much rather get somebody who does this for a living to help me out and give me the right kind of insights. And today I'm doing just that with Mr. Henry Romero from Costa Mesa Collision. Come in, Mr. Henry Romero. So the first time I heard of you was from Wheeler Dealers.
Yes,
right.
Correct.
So he did a couple of episodes, one or two episodes of Wheeler Dealers.
Two episodes. Actually, three. One was just a couple parts, but Cars Complete. We did 2 episodes.
And then you're doing some stuff now with Ant's new show.
Correct.
So you're down in like Newport Beach, Costa Mesa area in Orange County, Southern California. And how long have you been doing body work?
Oh gosh, 30 some odd years.
But is that how long you've had a shop? Or
no, my shop I've had for 10 years now in Costa Mesa.
And were you like, was it a family affair?
No, it was a labor of love. I always liked building cars stuff. I was working for a franchise body shop, which we won't name.
Yeah.
And the quality that was putting out of my shop was exceeding what they were known to do. So
it
started becoming more of a kind of a taboo. Nobody wanted to bring their $100,000 show car to a franchise shop.
Right.
So I kind of veered off on my own and started doing my cars, my projects, and rest is history.
I think it's pretty rare these days that a body shop does restoration stuff, because right now it's very like insurance,
Absolutely.
Brand new panel, spray it out the door.
Yep.
Like that's
part swappers,
which is frankly where the money is.
No doubt about it.
Right? Like that's how you pay your rent.
There's no doubt about it. And we do our share of that stuff. I mean, I have to keep the doors open.
Yeah.
But I have a passion for doing old cars and making beautiful pieces and works of art out of them. So
we used to, in the bike shop world, we used to say, that the $10,000 bike in the window is great, but they pay their rent selling inner tubes.
Yep. Absolutely.
And that is
That's
totally the case.
Absolutely.
Like, it's just, it's kind of something you have to do just to be in business, but wouldn't we rather be pouring over some cool project?
All day long.
So you've now seen, you've had a chance to look at the Blasphemy Build a little bit. What do you think?
I think it's amazing. I think you've done an amazing job. I mean, the epitome of DIY is right here. This is, I'm blown away by it.
Oh, good. Oh, cool.
I really am. I didn't know what to expect when I saw it. I saw a couple pictures there. But seeing what you've done is really impressive.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Good job.
Good. Aces so far. Thank you.
So far, so good.
Thank you, $300 welder from Craigslist. So where I'm at right now with the project is, you guys have seen the flares go on. The car's mostly in bare metal. I've got to get to the point where this thing is in one color. And I will say on the Gray Ghost build, that was 4 years to get to that point because I didn't really know what I was doing. It took a long time to do rockers and learn to fix rust. But the day that car was in one color, tears. Like it was like a big deal. And it's something about that emotional connection that we have with these cars where you're, almost like a chef with chef with a dessert and they're getting like right in there. We look at these little spots on the car and go, that took me 12 hours to do that. There's little
no doubt about it.
Section.
When you have the cars all buffed out, it looks beautiful. You're putting that last emblem on. There's nothing better than that.
Right.
Getting that last coat of wax off.
I used to love, I had a Volkswagen Carmen Ghia, and I've always loved the lines of that car. In fact, I hope to do a future project with that. I always loved being at a stoplight and seeing the reflection of the lights on the body of the car, like in my rear view mirror. I used to love that. So I got to get somewhere. Somehow I have to get from this point to that point so I can start seeing that stuff.
Right.
And what I thought we could do is, I thought we could maybe go around and you could talk about what the next steps are for a build like this.
Sure.
In terms of the prepping the body, hammer and dolly, like where we should be hammer and dollying, where we should be using fiberglass filler, where we should be using regular filler, at what point does the direct to metal primer come into play? is that something we can do in our own garage, or is it better to go to a shop? Like all those questions. Are you cool to answer some of that stuff?
Absolutely.
All right, so I'm going to grab the camera and we're going to kind of go around the car, and we'll just sort of talk through some of these points. All right, looking here at the Blasphemy Build, what would be the next step you would do, like in the shop? What would you guys do?
We'd definitely get rid of the rest of the paint, strip everything down so we know exactly what we're working with.
Okay.
If maybe get the glass out, that way, you know, when we start primering, we don't have to worry about the glass. Finish up the body work that's going on here. So the body work, if you're happy with it, then it's ready for primer. If not, I think I looked at it already. Well, I know I looked at it already, and it needs a little bit more help. So I would definitely, you know, rough it up a little bit and give it something for the filler to bite to.
Like, so this is a little bit too smooth right now?
This is, you got to understand the fillers and stuff, they're biting on, they don't have a chemical bond like paint does.
Yeah.
It has more of a, that adhesions with the coarseness of the product underneath. So you want to rough it up. If it's too smooth, you're not going to have a good bond.
So 40 grit, 80 grit? Like what's
I would go like an 80's fine.
Yeah, 80's fine.
You don't want to go too
for this.
crazy. 80's
Yeah.
fine, you know, and even hit it with a block with 80 grit, it's going to probably, you have enough, looks like you have enough material there that you'll use that material as you block it with the 80
Yeah.
to rough it up to actually smooth it out a little bit, so you'll have less work on the next coat.
Okay, right. Okay, and then for the areas that are already metal, basically hit the whole car again with 80, right?
I would hit
Get
the whole
it as
car.
shiny
Yep.
as possible.
Yep, and a lot of times, and it sounds crazy to put water on a bare metal car, but a lot of the products that we use are recommended to use like a mild detergent and water, but just dry it off really good.
Yeah.
Because you're taking a lot of the oils and stuff like that off of it.
Right.
And that's important. This is the foundation. The most important part of any kind of project when it comes to paint is a foundation. Foundation is number one. You can have a beautiful done car, but if your foundation is not strong, you're going to have bubbling, you're going to have cracking, you're going to have, you know, delamination. It's going to be a nightmare. So this is the most important part of any paint job, any bodywork, anything, is what you have underneath.
What about this section here? You know, I had talked about earlier that I was going to go over this one more time. You can see, if you guys see this close, it's got like a little bit of, I don't know if they call that undercut. What would you do? What would you do with this in the shop?
In the shop, to be honest with you, if we're just metal finishing something and we're not putting any filler on it, just primering and blocking, I'd say we do a little bit more work on it. But
Yeah.
on a project like this, we're going to have to put filler no matter what.
Right.
So filling every little crack is kind of overkill, I'll be honest with you, because we're going to have filler over it anyway.
Yeah.
You know, and the flare is not going to fall off. It's welded on strong. It's
Right.
not going anywhere. So if I would start putting filler on this, and like you and I talked about earlier, the fiberglass based fillers are good fillers to use on something like this.
Okay, so the fiberglass reinforced filler.
Correct.
First, and then I've got that either feather fill or the Evercoat,
Right, exactly.
whatever on
Yep.
top.
But hit it with something first, like a,
Yeah.
a 80 grit block.
Yeah.
You know, try to get a little bit straighter than what it is now, and then use that final coat,
Right.
and then block that in. It should be fine.
Do you guys do a thing where you see a lot of hot rod guys where they'll just do a whole panel?
Yeah.
They'll just
Skim coat it.
They'll skim coat
Yeah,
the whole panel
absolutely.
and
We
then
do it, yep.
block that whole thing
Sure,
down,
absolutely.
and you get just buttery smooth.
I mean, yeah, because I mean, if you're doing a little dent here and a little dent here, you got to feather all that stuff in
Right.
together. Well, you just put one little, you know, thin coat and block it in. It's makes life easier.
And then do you guys use guide coat for all that
Absolutely,
stuff?
sure,
Right, you use
sure.
guide coat. That's we've done that a bit in the past, guys, where you just spray. In fact, you can see a bit of it here. That's something where you just spray. Like I've actually just used primer or
Sure.
black paint, but they actually make guide coat paint.
They
You
actually
spray
make
it on the
powder,
whole
believe it or
panel.
not. They make
oh right,
yeah,
like
a little
a
powder that you can put on it.
you kind of dab it
Almost
like
talcum.
charcoal or
Yeah,
something.
uh-huh.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yep.
And then you basically sand it, and once it gets clean like this, then you know it's even,
Straight,
right?
yep, exactly.
Yeah, that's the
gonna be
idea.
even.
All right, Henry. So I've done, obviously a bunch of work on this thing. Done this drip rails and things like that. This is just Rust-Oleum, etching primer. Should I completely get rid of this before I do the next level?
I'm a big fan of keeping one product.
Right.
When you start mixing products, there's definitely the chance of having some kind of reaction. So I would suggest taking it all off.
Okay.
It looks like it's real thin. There's not a lot on
Yeah,
there.
it's just
yeah.
enough to not.
It makes
make
sense.
it
And
flash rust.
what you did is the right thing to do.
Okay.
But now that you're going to the next step, I would definitely take that off and just go with one product, and the product that we talked about.
Okay. Yeah, and we're going to talk about what the next phase, and if you could even do it yourself, or what the when is it going to be better to take it to a shop versus doing it yourself if you have the equipment, etc. So as you can see, I've got all these crazy surfaces that need the paint removed. I've got inside this hood, I've got in the door jambs, I've got in the wheel wells. It is a huge pain in the butt to remove paint now that the paint stripper that was good
It's gone away.
is gone.
Yeah.
So what do you guys do? What do the pros do in this case?
Well, sandblasting, I mean, we sub them out to sandblasters a lot of the times.
You do?
Yeah, we do that. I've tried, in the past, I have tried some on-site stuff. It got a little bit messy for my shop.
Okay.
So, we haven't done that. We tried it once. It didn't work out that well. It was just underneath of a 55 Bel Air, so it wasn't like,
it wasn't
critical
outside
exactly,
panel stuff.
Exactly.
So with the sandblasting, let's say you take it to a place, and I've seen $500 to $2,500
All over
for
the
a
place,
car,
sure.
right? Depending on where you are in the country. You guys get a freshly sandblasted car back. You can't just spray primer on it because there's sand all over the place, and you're going to get it everywhere.
Exactly.
So what do you do?
Well, there's different medias of stripping. Soda blasting is another media that's pretty
good.
Yeah, you don't get.
It doesn't work as well,
right? But you don't get all the sand everywhere and stuff like that. And what's left, to be honest with you, you can hit it with a sander and get whatever's left off.
Yeah.
Except for the little crevices and stuff like that.
Yeah, right.
So I mean, it's kind of a job by job basis. See what you come up with, but
if you had sand, what would be the cleanup procedure for sand?
A lot of air blowing
out, right?
Absolutely. Get all the crevices. Get all, it's tedious.
Do you ever use like a high pressure washer?
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Something like you could probably even rent from Home Depot or
Correct.
something. In fact, I bought a kit on Amazon where you can get glass beads, and you can get the Home Depot 4,000 PSI washer.
Right.
And then integrate that to make your own dustless blasting setup.
I've never seen that system.
So I might try it. Yeah, I might give it a go on this and see how it goes.
Keep me posted.
Yeah, I will. The DIY dustless. All right, so this is good. Then let's talk about, let's go out and look at the beast.
Sure.
And we'll talk about gear.
Yep.
And then we'll talk about what we could put on top of this
Perfect.
thing. All right, Henry, behind us is the beast. This was, I drove by my neighbor's house, and I saw this in the garage, and I stopped, and I said, what's that thing doing? Because it looks like, this is like a real shop compressor. And he goes, industrial. And he goes, yeah, this was in a gas station for years. And I go, what's it doing in your garage? He's like, well, it should be in your garage. I said, you're right about that. Absolutely. And brought it over the next day, so I'm temporarily storing it for him.
Gotcha.
While he now has an open garage, and he's very happy about it.
Good.
So first and foremost, is this thing capable of doing at least primer on my car if I wanted to?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It would have the capabilities and the horsepower.
So what are we
PSI.
looking for, PSI, horsepower-wise,
Well,
in a compressor? Talk into that.
Nowadays, the guns that we use are HVLP.
Okay.
High volume, low pressure.
Okay.
So if you have a compressor that's giving out 120 pounds,
Yeah.
you're fine.
Fine.
You're fine. Absolutely fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And then
So
the bigger tank
120, and then
helps.
what about, what's the CFM? Does that matter as much?
I don't think that matters in something like that. To be honest,
Okay.
I couldn't answer that question.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the important part here is that the capacity is big.
Correct.
That's the part that matters.
Yes.
That way you're getting a consistent flow to the gun.
Correct.
As long as possible, right?
Yeah, what a lot of people do, if room permits, is also even just get a empty tank
Yeah.
and have an auxiliary tank. So you have
Like
two
a
tanks.
second tank.
Yeah,
Right.
you have to have
okay.
a motor on it. You just combine them.
Right.
And it's more your motor will work less.
Okay, and then you can set a regulator as well,
Sure,
right?
absolutely.
So do certain guns call for certain constant pressure, and then you go, okay, this thing wants 75, and dial your thing
Not
to
a certain
75.
gun. I
Not
mean,
really?
it's whatever. Every painter is kind of comfortable with how he sprays. How they set up their gun. You have a guy that can spray with high pressure. We have a guy that can lay it out with low pressure. So it really depends on what the preference of the actual person applying it.
It's like welding,
Yeah, it's like welding.
like fast,
exactly.
slow,
So,
yeah.
it's a matter of trial and error. What works good for you.
Okay, so this guy is good. Let's talk about what has to happen between the compressor and the gun.
It's very important to have a good filtration system that goes from your compressor into your.
Fly southwest, everybody.
Like I was saying earlier about the foundation on the paint job itself, the bare metal, it's very important that your foundation on your airs is handled the proper way. If you have any kind of contamination going from your compressor, which in something this old you will, you'll have water, you'll have oil, there'll be some kind of contamination coming through
The
line.
beast has seen some crap.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you want to filter all that stuff out because it could be detrimental down the road.
Okay. How do you do that?
Well, there's very good filtrations. I know you have a Harbor Freight one.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Not that good.
Not that good. That's
It's well worth the $19 I paid
right.
for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a company called RTI. They have a vast levels of filtration.
Okay.
You know, something for your garage, you can probably get something in about $300 to $500 range.
Okay.
That will take care of what you need to take care of, so you don't have that contamination in your primers, paint, and so
Okay.
forth. And it also
So-
saves your tools.
You dial me in on that. I can link it up in the description. And well, I can look around too. There's probably some stuff on Amazon. There's probably some
Sure,
different kits that you
absolutely.
can get that
And-
are probably decent
Exactly,
for
yep.
this. I
And
think
RTI is just one company. There's other companies on there. RTI is probably, when it comes to, you know, on the professional side, you know, the body shop side, is probably the best around. But there is definitely other products that you can get that are probably a little bit more cost effective that'll also do the job.
right.
You know.
So we're looking for is it a filter and a dryer?
Yes, exactly.
And then is there any other pieces that are
I
important?
mean, if you want to get tricky, you can actually buy a separate dryer.
Okay.
But you're talking about, you know, you're installing an it's like installing an air conditioning system
Oh,
that
wow,
dries
right.
out. So I think this what you have here is going to work just fine with the right filtration
Right.
system. It'll be able to get your job
So-
done the proper way.
just be better than the Harbor Freight
Just be
one
better
that
than
I
Harbor
have.
Freight.
Okay, that makes sense. So, but once that's done, you then, is there any, from a technique standpoint, do you need to, you know, let the compressor dry? Do you open it up? Do you need to dry it out, or is it just like?
So
yeah.
definitely you want to drain the compressor. I mean, even if you do it a couple times while you're working, it doesn't hurt.
Okay.
You know, because all that stuff builds up and goes in your lines.
Do you do it like this one has a drain on it? I
Yes,
can just hit it and
exactly.
whoosh,
Yep.
it fires
That's
out.
what you want to do.
Keep it under pressure and it'll really just rock it, right? It'll get
Exactly.
stuff out of there. Probably a good idea to do at the beginning of every paint
And at the end.
sesh, right? And at the
when
end,
you're done.
right?
When you're
okay.
done, just drain it.
Right.
That'll keep it from corroding underneath inside the belly of the tank.
Okay.
There's
Is there
also-
anything you can add to it?
Well, you know, you can add to it at your airline, you know, or at
Yeah,
your
right.
gun. They have those little bulbs that are filters that work really well. They don't have a long life expectancy, but if you're in the middle of a job or you're doing a job that's really critical, get a couple of them. You know, they just screw right on your gun.
Right.
You know, and just use a couple of them as you go, and just it's a little more insurance just to make sure that everything's nice and clean.
What are the symptoms of water in your airline as you're spraying?
Fisheye. You'll see
Fisheye.
fisheye, yeah. And I
What is
don't
that?
know-
That looks like a crater,
Yeah,
kinda,
it
right?
looks like a crater. It's contamination, separation. You'll see the separation in there.
Yeah.
You know, so the contamination separates the product. And,
Right. And is it curable? Like if you fisheyed something, you obviously have to sand it back.
Right. Well, it's curable in primer a lot easier than it is in paint.
Okay.
In paint, they actually have an additive that it's called fisheye eliminator, which actually puts a little bit of silicone in the paint, so it almost looks
Really?
like an antibody. So it puts
Wow.
actually a little bit of, and that keeps it from
It moves the
Look,
water out of the
exactly.
way. Interesting.
not the
High
water,
tech.
the oils.
The oils.
Yeah, the contamination. Most of your contamination is going to be oils.
So everything about these projects is about foundation. It's about keeping the air as clean as possible, about keeping the metal as clean as possible. But there's something about, like, I already have probably 3 projects in my head, future projects. So I think when you're getting a compressor, you're getting your filter situation, you're getting your gun, maybe not as much the gun, because some of the guns are almost disposable now, right?
They do have
You can
some,
buy
yeah.
like a $40 gun on
Right.
Amazon that's great, and or just use it for primer only
Right.
or
yeah, yeah,
whatever.
For primer
right?
only. I mean, I suggest using something a little bit better for paint.
Yeah, right.
You know?
You don't need the $500 gun
no.
to do well.
Correct.
But it's worth investing in some decent stuff then, so you can use it multiple times. Really quick before the next phase, which is going to be getting some product on the car. What do you do here with, like, this is OEM paint? How do you prep this for the next phase?
Well, if you're not going to strip it, then obviously just hit it with like some 220. It's going to be a good enough bite for the primer.
You can hit it with a DA, you think, or you got a hand?
Absolutely. No,
so 220 on a DA.
220 on a DA, it's not going to do any divots into the paint. So 220 is smooth enough to do it that way.
Okay. And that's fine. Like, so if you have a panel that's nice and clean,
Right.
and there's no issues, you can just hit it with 220 and,
Right.
Bob's your uncle.
But I mean, if you want it for if you want to have peace of mind, because you don't know if this panel was repaired, it could have a little bit of filler in the middle.
That's why this is all stripped.
Exactly. So it doesn't hurt to strip it down to the bare metal and make it the same as everything else.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Especially because if on a nice flat panel like this, you could put a 40 or an 80 on it and probably
Right.
get it
Yeah.
pretty clean,
Exactly.
pretty quick.
Correct.
All right, so let's talk about, you got your car prepped, you got your compressor dialed. Now we got to lay something on the car to get this thing into one color and frankly stop it from being exposed to the air. This is the phase like where I'm almost in, where I want the thing to be workable, but I still want to be able to do body work over it and that kind of thing, right?
Absolutely.
So they make a product called DTM, or direct to metal.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yep.
And it's okay. Those DTM products, is it okay to be to go over the fiberglass filler and things like
Absolutely.
that?
It's made for it.
Okay, cool. So we've got here. What do we have here? Walk us through what we've got.
This is NP75, and I'm not plugging any material. This is what I'd use, and
Well, I am, because they just gave me this bottle. So Sherwin-Williams NP75.
it's just good stuff. It's really high build. It dries with a little bit of sheen, so if you have a low spot, you can actually sight it.
Oh, wow.
So most primers are completely flat.
Right.
This one dries with a little bit of a sheen, so it's like how they say you see everything in a black paint job.
Right, sure.
Anything that has a little bit of a sheen to it, you can see if there's a low spot or a little wave or something. Like
Okay.
that. So it's good for sighting.
Awesome.
And your guide coat does the same thing, but it's easier to say, okay, well, I can see a low spot there. Let's put a little putty on there before we even start.
Right.
So you're already ahead of the game that way.
So when you would lay this on, at that point, would you be able to just do like the feather fill or just the top layer of? So you don't need the fiberglass stuff.
No.
And this stuff is going to cover some scratches and
Gonna
get into
cover
some
a lot of
spots,
stuff.
right?
This product used to be made, they used to call it squeegee prime, so it's thick enough to where there was a way of mixing it where you could actually squeegee it on.
Or
So it's-
roll it. I
yeah,
use rollers on that
yeah.
one.
So it's a
I
very-
literally use paint rollers,
Yeah.
like hard foam rollers
Yep.
on that car.
Sure. So it's a very high build, and it is DTM, so it's direct to metal. The other
What
product,
does that mean? Sorry.
direct to metal.
Yeah, but what is DT like? Does that mean it etches? It's an
It
etching
etches,
primer.
Correct. Yep.
And
And this is an epoxy primer, by the way. It's not a urethane primer. It's epoxy.
got it. So what does that mean to me? What does that mean to me if it's an epoxy primer? Does that mean that it seals against
It
the?
seals. It's stronger. I mean, it's just a good foundation.
Yeah,
You know?
epoxy is super strong,
Right.
and you need a hardener
Yeah,
with it.
you want to reduce it and you want to harden it.
Okay.
And then the other product we have, these are really cool. It's an ATX wipe, and what that does, and you actually if you're doing a small area that's bare metal, you don't even need a direct to metal primer for that. That actually works as an adhesion promoter for any kind of primer to put onto bare metal.
Pre-treatment etch wipes.
Correct.
So I could wipe this panel and then hit it with regular primer.
Correct.
It wouldn't have to be self-etching.
Correct.
Wow, cool.
So what we do, and the reason I brought this, I mean, it's a little bit of overkill, but like I said, foundation is the number one thing you want
Yeah.
in a good paint job. So you wipe this thing down, do its thing, let it do its thing, and then put the DTM primer on it, and you have a rock solid base.
Would you use this instead of wax and grease remover? Is that what it's for?
No, I would use both. I mean,
Do this first, then wax and grease,
no,
or
no,
vice
the other
versa?
Way, the other way around.
So
Yeah,
clean,
waxing, yep.
clean as much as you can, and
Right.
then hit this. And this is the last thing that happens before that.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
How many times do you have to refill your gun for a car this size?
Well, it depends on how you have your gun set up. I
Okay.
mean, if you have your material opened up, you're putting a lot of material on.
Yeah.
You're going to go through the cup like that.
Right.
Which is not a bad thing. I mean, you're putting material.
You can't really.
The idea.
You
of
can't
the
go
game,
wrong here, right?
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to, have runs everywhere. But,
Yeah.
You want to adjust your gun to where you're putting plenty of material on, but it's not running on you.
And how many coats of this do you think?
You know what? To get a nice solid base, I would put 3 coats of that.
3 coats.
Yeah.
Okay.
You
And
can
do
get away with 2 coats, but 3 coats, you have a great foundation.
Is it like a millimeter to a product?
You know what? I think it's like, I want to say it's going to be like 3 mils. I read
Wow.
it. Yeah. It's a really good product. It's
Yeah.
You know, a lot of this stuff you'll see that's going to go away once you start guide coat it, block it,
Yeah.
and you'll see the black going away from the guide coat. It's just
Right.
amazing.
That is a cool. It's a cool process when you start seeing
absolutely.
it really
There's
smooth.
other high build primers out there. You know, in my experiences, the other ones just seem to be real brittle. And
Right.
you know, after the car's painted, it gets a little rock chip, and it chips all the way down to that primer because it's so brittle.
Yeah.
This epoxy has a little bit of give to it.
Yeah.
So it works a lot better.
Okay.
And in longevity wise too, because I've used it for years, and I've never had any kind of issues because of this primer.
So you see my garage space.
I do.
Is it feasible to spray a car in your garage or in your driveway with not paint but primer? Is that a thing?
Primer, yes, I would say you definitely have, if you have the right ventilation, the way you set up your gun. There's ways of setting up your gun where you can have somebody spraying and there's overspray going everywhere. You can set it up to where you have less air pressure. The guns that we're using now are HVLP guns, so they're putting out a lot less air pressure, more volume. So you wanted the object of the game is to get more product onto the car, not everywhere else. So if you use it a lower pressure, air pressure, and you got to kind of gauge putting the material on with a good flow without it running, that's where you want to be. And it's going to create less overspray.
Okay.
And your neighbors will be a lot happier.
Sure. So if I lined, let's say, like if you look at my garage, which side would be a better DIY spray booth? Assuming I plasticked everything.
I would go on your...
That's what I thought.
Yeah, definitely.
So that side, because then I've got that door back there and
Correct.
I've got a garage there. And can I create with maybe 2 fans? I can create a flow, right? Is that what we want to do?
Yeah, you want to make a flow. You want to have to where it exits and you're not trapped in just a bunch of overspray.
Yeah.
And
you like the lighting in there, probably, right?
Lighting's great in there,
solid.
actually. It's almost like a spray booth.
It's almost like a spray booth. That was not on accident. That this has always been the spot that I thought I would be able to do this. But lighting is really important. If you guys can see, let me show you guys really quick. That lighting, you see that in there? Is that easy to see? So I've got a bunch of 8-foot lights I got from Amazon, LEDs. I imagine when it comes time to spray this thing, I may put a couple mid-height, you know? I might hang one so that I've got some kind of like door level so I can see the reflection on the door, right?
You know, on a bright day like this, unless you're spraying metallics and that type of stuff.
Doesn't really matter?
Doesn't really matter.
See, I'm all about the overkill, apparently.
I mean, as long as you get the rockers real nice, you know, and get nice even on everything, even coats, you should be fine.
And what about, do you wet the floor down before you spray?
Doesn't matter for primer.
Doesn't matter for primer.
You know, and now it's a good idea to wet it down so the overspray doesn't stick to the floor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just for cleanliness.
Yeah, right. But I'll probably line the whole thing with plastic anyway.
What a lot of people use, and it works out really good, is roofing material. Put roofing material down.
Which is what?
What they use before they put the roof shingles.
Is it like paper?
Yeah, it's a roll.
Yeah.
Just roll it down, you know, tape it down or whatever, and then after you're done, roll it back up, throw it in the trash.
Okay. All right, there you go. At what point do you, as a DIYer, throw up your hands and go, I'm bringing it to Henry, I'm out? Because what can we expect from like a cost standpoint and from a timing standpoint for, let's just say, first phase primer? Because I know paint jobs can go from $2,000 to 50. You know, it's
absolutely
they can get crazy. You can be wet sanding between coats, and it gets nuts. But primer, you're putting 3 millimeters down. You're trying to get your body straight. It's not brain surgery, right? Like, this part isn't the most critical.
Yeah, and it's very forgiving. I mean, if you got to run, you just block it out.
You block it out.
You know, it's easy.
Yeah.
You know, whereas with paint, then there's a lot more critical.
Yeah.
The repairability is a lot less in the paint than it is primer.
And also, we're going to follow up with these videos throughout this, and hopefully I'll be able to spray this thing in like a nice booth, and maybe you can show me a thing or two when the time comes. But at what point do you know, who's this for and who's it not?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, it depends on your skill level and your patience.
Yeah.
You know, if there's not much to masking off a car and applying primer to it. There's really not.
Yeah.
Bodywork, again, that's your skill level. If you're happy with the way your bodywork looks, remember that what you're doing now, at the end of the product, that's going to be what you get. Once you have paint on,
Right.
that's what you got.
There's no way around it.
So when you say at what point, it depends on the job itself and how much bodywork's gone into it, how straight the bodywork is, that type of stuff.
Okay.
So
it's all about really patience.
Patience.
Because it's really easy, I think, in the bodywork world. Like I spent a whole summer sanding that.
Right.
Literally. Like I sanded that thing forever. But that's a 15-year-old paint job. Still looks pretty good.
It looks beautiful.
Looks pretty good for 15 years. Now, when I look at it now, I see like, I could have done better with the gaps, and but I didn't know better. I just go. I want to put the car together. So this one I'll be paying a lot more attention to the fitment before it gets sprayed. Sure. But there is a point where, I think there's probably the WAF, otherwise known as the wife acceptance factor, which we have in the car audio world or the home audio world. She's like, maybe I don't want a subwoofer in the middle of the living room. All right. So there's a bit of that. I think a bit of the wife acceptance factor in terms of like, can we pull this thing off? And then there's also like, how busy are you and how much are you invested in this
huge
process? So if somebody came to you with a bare metal car like this and said, do you guys think you could just kind of get the bodywork dialed and get it in primer? Can you give some sort of range? Is it $1,500 to $5,000? Like what range?
Well, again, you have to, there's different levels of what we would have to do. If there's rust repair, that type of stuff.
But let's say it's where I am. Maybe no rust.
I would say between, I don't know, $1,500 to $2,000.
Yeah, okay.
Get it,
which is what I thought.
Yeah, finish up whatever you have here, block it, a couple layers on and put Coast primer on.
For a guy that works in your shop, this is just another Tuesday. This is no big deal. Like for us, it's a bigger deal because I'm slaving over this. Like, it's like 2 millimeters. It's supposed to be 2.5. But what these guys do for a living, you have all the materials, you have all the knowledge, all the experience. You don't have to go to AutoZone 19 times because you keep forgetting something. It's just there. So at some point it becomes your time versus money.
Correct.
If you got a couple grand, then drop it to a place. But I will say there is something incredibly satisfying about seeing the process through.
No doubt about it.
And for me, I've never done this. I've literally never mixed a hardener primer combo. I have done I had a repair to do on my brother's Buick, whatever it was, SUV. And I got the paint made at a place, and I got the 2K clear, and I did a bumper. Looked pretty damn good. Like, bolted it on. I was like,
done.
Yeah, did that in the driveway. Feel pretty good about that. That was a $80 fix.
Right.
This is obviously not that. This thing has to look good under SEMA lights and represent a little bit and get some eyeballs on it. So, going to try to get the pros. Everybody that wants to see great work, Costa Mesa Collision is on Facebook. They're on the Instagrams. I will post all of those links in the description below. Anything that I've missed in this?
Covered all the bases. I got to say, I'm pretty impressed with what you have going on here.
Thanks, man.
I'm looking forward to see the end of project.
Yeah, well, hopefully you'll be somewhat involved in it.
I hope so too.
Because I don't know if I've got that magic wrist.
No, we're going to get you in the booth, and then we're going to make sure you put some coats on.
Jeez, I'm already nervous about that. Anyway, guys, that is your primer on bodywork. Get it. Thanks for watching. As always, thank you for coming all the way up from Newport and Costa Mesa.
You got
it. Check him out and check his work out. Is really just first-rate stuff. Check out some Wheeler Dealers episodes. You can see their stuff. And then on the upcoming Anstead, I don't know what the name of the show is.
It's actually called Celebrity IOU Joyride Edition.
Okay. All right. So he'll be on that one as well. But thanks for tuning in as always. High five in the comments. We'll see you next time.